I want to tell you a story about a person named Mr. Langer. Mr. Langer was a gentleman from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Years ago, a prominent supporter of many Jewish causes and yeshivas. Most prominently, he was the one who provided some of the initial funds for the establishment of Yeshivas Kletsk in the United States, in a resort town in New Jersey known as Lakewood, now one of the largest and most prestigious yeshivas in the world. And unfortunately, hard times hit Mr. Langer. He lost all of his wealth later on in life. His influence and his prestige with that waned. And his phone, which used to ring on end, non-stop, off the hook, rabbis and dignitaries who desired his counsel as well as his donations, went silent. Suddenly, no one was calling. There was, however, one person who didn't forget Mr. Langer, continued to call him regularly, even though he lost all of his funds. One individual for whom Hakaras HaTov was more important than Mr. Langer's current financial status, a person who single-handedly kept Mr. Langer's dignity intact. That man's name was Rav Aaron Cutler, the Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood Yeshiva. Imagine how difficult it is, or would be, for someone to one day be treated like an all-star and then to feel like a pariah the next. How do we contend with such emotionally complex and diverse, painful circumstances? And the beauty of the Torah is that it doesn't just tell us stories or provide us with a list of laws. It also deals with the human nature, the vicissitudes of life, and examples such as these. One such example is in our Parsha. Miriam had just engaged in gossip, Lashon Hara, about her brother Moshe. In a session of Lashon Hara with Aaron, a moment of weakness, they spoke about Moshe, his relationship with Tzipora, his wife, and they voiced concern about something they thought was a legitimate concern. How could my younger brother treat his wife in such a way? And she began to vent to Aaron. It's a moment of time, it's a blip of time in the Torah. And it's not clear where Moshe was during this conversation, but he does not have to come to his own defense. Instead, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chvodo V'atmo, jumps to Moshe's defense, immediately rebukes Miriam, punishes her with a bout of tsaras, and banishes her subsequently from the camp for 7 days. Vatisager Miriam mechutz l'machaneh shivas yamim va'am lo nasa re'asef Miriam. The Torah tells us something very strange. Not only does Miriam go into excommunication during her tsaras, outside of the camp, chutz mina machaneh, but the nation doesn't go anywhere until she is done. And afterwards, the Torah says, they left Chatzeros, they left that one town they were in the desert, and they moved on and journeyed to the wilderness of Paran. Why does the Torah make a big deal about this? That Miriam was chutz min hamachaneh, she had sarat. The camp did not leave, they didn't budge, they didn't move until she was done, and then they left Chatzerot and they went to Midbar Paran. Says Rashi, to tell us how incredible Miriam was as a reward, that kavod chalak lo hamakom b'shil sha'achas shenis'ak v'lamoshe sheyahosh lior. It was a reward for that moment years ago when Miriam took baby Moshe in the teva, in that little basket, and gently placed him on the Nile, and instead of turning her back right away, she lingered, she tarried for a moment longer and waited to see what would happen to Moshe. And because she waited an extra moment, the Bnei Yisrael waited for her to finish her bout, her punishment of tzarat. Upon reading this amazing Agarta, several glaring questions come to mind. Firstly, the Bnei Yisrael, did they really have to wait? Was that really a reward? You're telling me that every time someone got tzarat earlier on, they would just leave in the camp? It was time for the machane to move on to the next location, the next locale in the desert. If there were 15 lepers sitting chutz machane, they would just leave them behind to fend for themselves? Of course they're going to wait for them. They're not going to wait for Miriam. That's a reward. They're not leaving. They're not going anywhere until the Mitzoraim are ready to join them as well. That's not part of the punishment tzaras, that you get left behind and you have to go to the lost and found. Second of all, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, his Drash Moshe, if God wanted to reward Miriam, why does God wait for this moment, her hour of degradation, the moment in which she sins, in which she tells Lashon Hara, with which to reward Miriam? Most likely, the Israelites would have waited for anyone. And the Torah doesn't address this topic. It stands to reason that they always did so. But it's precisely this timing that the Torah shows us how special Miriam was. Even, says Rav Moshe, when she was at her lowest moments, even b'shas hachet shelah, the time that she sinned, she's still beloved to Moshe. She's still desired to the people. She's still loved by God. What Rav Moshe is suggesting is that it's specifically in a person's lowest moments that we discover what people really think of them. It doesn't take much to honor Miriam in other moments. In other times, she is the most illustrious of Jewish women. She is the great prophetess. She is the great poetess. She is the possessor of royal blood, the sister of Moshe and Aaron, the daughter of Amram and Yocheved. She is royalty. Everyone wanted to be her friend. But where are her friends to honor her when she is indiscreet? When her moment of weakness brings her shame, and she's caught with a hot mic, saying the things that she never should have said or thought in the first place. And human nature is to celebrate a person in their heyday, but to abandon them in their hour of degradation. This, however, is not the Jewish way. Lo nasar hayasef Miriam. The Jewish people did not leave until Miriam was ready to join them. For we don't lose sight of all the virtuous deeds from a person's past just because they happen to be on the cover of the tabloids today. The sentiment was captured perfectly by Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech, a man who experienced his own fluctuating fortunes. B'chol eis ohev hareah, says the Pasuk in Mishlei in the 17th chapter, V'ach letzara yivaled. A friend loves at all times, but a brother is born for adversity. This means that true friendship should be based on the model of siblings, who are born specifically to support one another through their darkest times, and not abandon them in those moments when it's convenient. When most others have forgotten about baby Moshe, Miriam still waited for him. She still watched to see what would happen. And when society's lepers are cast aside, Miriam included, the Torah's charge is to us to wait. Lo nasar hayasef. We are not going anywhere without you. How many times does someone fall ill, lose their fortune, go through a divorce, and we act callously as if they no longer exist, as if their life circumstances are now contagious? This cowardly act is a clear declaration to anyone who is beleaguered and downtrodden that we could function perfectly well without them. When people say things they shouldn't, when they respond or don't respond with the correct slogan as determined by the spirit and the style of the moment, we reject them outright from our group. We declare them eternal lepers. And no one is safe from this kind of scrutiny, from the cancel culture that now pervades our world, in which there is no reprieve, from which there is no room for tshuva, for repentance, in which complete erasure of all past good deeds and all deeds is the norm. It takes a Rav Aaron Cutler to hand you a lifeline when everyone else is trying to weigh down your rope. Think about the people we disagree with, the people for whom we politically, religiously, personally don't see eye to eye. Those who are, for us, chutz min ha-machaneh, who occupy that space beyond the camp. Can we act as brothers and sisters ought to? We must never write them off. We must never remove that safety net. It seems that times like these call for short tempers to be replaced by longer memories. Hakaras hatov. For neighbors to start acting a little more like siblings. And above all, the awareness that all of us are worth waiting for.